Hi, and welcome to the first in a two-part tutorial in the series covering Vectra deployment in AWS. Vectra supports a number of deployment configurations, such as single VPCs, multi-VPCs, hybrid deployments. These are quite common with our existing customers that have brains already deployed within their data centers, but need coverage within their AWS deployments with their EC2 instances. We also have, also support hybrid deployment methods in terms of the enterprise, multiple VPCs, again in a hybrid model, multiple accounts, extremely common within enterprise scenarios and deployments, where you want to differentiate between certain teams, departments, could be regions and locations. So we also support those configurations as well. And then lastly, multi-region support is also covered by our deployment methodologies. If you require any additional information regarding these deployments, please feel free to get in touch. But for today's tutorial, what we're going to be covering mostly in terms of our deployment is single VPC. We're going to keep it extremely simple right here. Now, before we get started, there's a few things we're going to need. First of all, it's appropriate access to deploy the CloudFormation stack. We also then need the CloudFormation template provided by Vectra, and also a registration token also provided by Vectra. Once we have all of those, we're ready to get started. So let's get started. As I said in the beginning, we're going to be starting with a completely blank canvas. This blank canvas will consist of a single VPC with two subnets. We'll be deploying the brain into the public subnet. The reason for this being is that I don't have a dedicated method of getting to the VPC itself via a direct connect or via VPN, so I'll be connected via the internet itself, and then subsequently securing it with my own public IP, so only my machine can then get to the brain configuration. So let's start off with the brain deployment. So new VPC, and then we'll launch the wizard. We want the wizard to pretty much do everything for us, so we want VPC and subnets. So this will be a demo, and just put my initials in there. I'm happy with the IP addressing it's going to provide. Now, I'm not too worried about the availability zones, so we'll just have a single availability zone. Number of public subnets, 1. Private subnets, 1. NAT gateways, none. Endpoints, have an S3 gateway right there. Also very important to have DNS resolution enabled, no matter what deployment you're deploying into, or the scenario or the topology. But we'll also enable, in this particular case, host names as well. So we'll see here the graphical representation of what is about to be built, and we will create the VPC. And there we have it, as simple as that. One newly created VPC and subsequent subnets. So, but just prior to deployment of the brain itself, there's one more step we need to do, and that is creation of the key pairs. So just type that in there, and key pairs. So this is necessary for if you want to SSH to the deployment thereafter. We'll need to have a certificate to do that, and if you already have a certificate or a key pair generated, you can simply use that as part of the CloudFormation when it asks you which key pair to use, or we can generate a new one. Here we're going to generate a new one. So we'll call this one again demo RSA, use it with OpenSSH compatibility, no additional tags required, and I'll create that key pair there. I will then store that in my temp directory, and there we have it. So now we can start the Brain deployment. So let's navigate to CloudFormations, where we can start the template. Okay, so we're going to create the stack, a new stack. We have a template already. I'm simply going to upload the template from my saved location on my drive. It will upload and verify. Once it's happy, we'll hit next, and we will commence with adding the necessary details. So what is the stack name we wish to create? I will use the base name as the same as the stack name. We won't have anything for the Brain backup Brain token because there is no existing deployment in place. The instance type, we'll choose the 4 large. 2 large is the smallest of our instances for testing purposes, development teams, so on and so forth. So we'll choose the middle one in this particular case. The VPC we wish, so our newly created demo JR there, and the management subnet will be JR public. So there we go, demo JR public right there, and the provisioning token we will add. So we'll copy that in there and paste. We'll also require a public IP address and the SSH key that we created. Once we're happy with that, we'll hit next. Do we wish to add in additional tags? This really will help for organization and anyone else viewing the stack thereafter. We'll leave it as blank for the time being. Hit next, confirm all of our details. I'm pretty happy with that. And we'll hit create stack. Now, typically, this could take anywhere from a minute to 3 minutes, depending on the region in which you're deploying and how busy it is at that particular moment in time. But we can keep refreshing so we can check on its progress. What we're waiting for is effectively 3 create complete ticks. So we'll just wait for those. They shouldn't take too long, so we can see exactly what's happening. So the management groups have been created. The EC2 instance itself has been created. So hopefully one more. There we go. The Brain stack has completed. So very quickly, in under a minute. Now, what we could do is just go ahead and start this particular instance. But what I'd like to do is configure the security first and foremost. So if we go to the resources that were created during this stack, it will tell me, okay, we have the instance, we also have the management security group. I want to modify the security group itself, first and foremost. So I'll click to edit that. I will ask for the inbound rules and edit those inbound rules right there. I'm going to add a rule. What we want is SSH and HTTPS. Okay. So I will copy in my IP address and it's /32. Then also add HTTPS in there as well. Okay, /32 right there. So HTTPS for the web interface, SSH if you want to go behind the scenes for the command line. And we'll save those rules. So that will now allow me into this box. So go back to CloudFormation stack. I can see everything's happening there. I'll go directly to it and look at the configuration that we have. Okay, it's filtering and it's telling me the box is already, well, it's actually initializing. So that could take a few more moments. Now, typically, when this occurs, the box obviously is initiating, it's doing all of its checks on the file system, so on and so forth. This process can actually take up to 30 minutes, because what it could also be doing is once it's up, it will register itself with Vectra, and then any updates that are required, it will also pull those down, and then maybe, depending on the number of updates, perform a couple of reboots. But we can check on that progress. Let's have a look at the details that the box has right now. So we can see that we have a public IP address. Let's try and connect into it. Let's open up a new tab, and it's telling me, so the box is up, authentication is complete, so it's registered itself with Vectra, and as I told you, it's verifying the system, and it could take up to 30 minutes. So what we'll do is have a quick break, and we'll reconvene once this is all complete. And we are back. So as you can see, we have a completed deployment of our Vectra brain, and it tells us we have success. But let's see how successful this actually is. Let's try and log in. Hit the login. We'll then be prompted with a username. So by default within AWS, well, for all of our deployments, it's admin. Now the password is set dynamically, and it's set to the instance ID of the brain. So, or instance ID of the EC2 instance. So make a copy of that. We'll paste that in, and we will attempt to log in. And here we have it. So we'll quickly just add in the license agreement information, agree to that. Yep. And we have a working brain. So we've covered configuration of the VPC instances and everything else that entails. We now have a working brain. So join me for the next tutorial, whereby we will go through some of the configuration, but also then setting up and configuring of the sensors that will then communicate and collect that traffic information and then send it to the brain thereafter. Take care.